And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Wednesday morning flying weather, good VFR from the Arctic Ocean all the way down into southern Alaska here, and then we pick up some IFR along the western Alaska range, portions of the southwest interior, a lot of IFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians there, right on up into western Bristol Bay, IFR Kodiak Island, up into the North Gulf Coast, maybe even Resurrection Bay, eastward here across the Gulf of Alaska into the Panhandle. For the afternoon, improving here, becoming just marginal VFR over the inside waters there, but IFR lingering up to the north of the southeast coast, and IFR pulling off the coast there into the Gulf of Alaska. IFR east side of Kodiak Island, but VFR here, Kenai Peninsula, right on up through the interior to the Arctic coast. And out west, IFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians to the western Alaska Peninsula, with marginal VFR still making it inland here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta and, of course, Bristol Bay. And for the morning, Thursday morning, VFR here over just about all of mainland Alaska, IFR St. Lawrence Island southward to the Aleutians out over the Bering Sea, and a band of IFR here up along the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound, down the east side of the Kenai Peninsula to Kodiak Island, and mostly IFR for the southeast coast. And then that becomes mostly marginal for the Panhandle during the afternoon Thursday. Just a little bit of IFR left for the North Gulf Coast there, either side of Yakutat. Marginal VFR Prince William Sound into the Barren Islands, maybe some IFR lingering around Kodiak Island, but nothing but VFR over the interior. Again, from the Arctic Ocean right on down into Bristol Bay, Cook Inlet, Copper River Basin. And IFR out here just south of St. Lawrence Island, down across the Bering Sea there, Pribilof Islands, into areas from about Nikolsky, westward there to Amchitka Island. And for the passes, for the Brooks Range, another VFR flying day coming up for both Anatuvik and Adigan. And for the Western Alaska Range, Lake Clark and Merrill, starting out IFR on the eastern approach, becoming marginal throughout the day. And for Rainy, improvement also, but marginal VFR becomes VFR. Windy VFR, Isabel VFR, Mintesta, same forecast, and VFR also for Tanita. Portage, IFR becoming marginal, and Chilkoot and Hawaii, occasional IFR throughout the entire day on Wednesday. And for the freezing levels, upper high pressure here, 12,000 feet there over the north slope in the Arctic coast, with 10,000 feet down really across the remainder of mainland Alaska here. And then that cool pool of about 6,000 feet over the southern Panhandle, back up to 12 to 14,000 feet here over the Bering Sea. Warmest here over the central and eastern Aleutians. And for the icing, not much really going on. Have some maybe some icing out here over the western Bering Sea, isolated moderate there, but that's pretty much north of the Aleutians, well to the west. Nothing of any significance from the Arctic coast right on down into the North Gulf Coast. Could be some isolated moderate icing for Kodiak Island, and maybe some areas of isolated moderate mixed icing for the southeast coast. Looking at the jet stream, that upper level low slowly moving east and southeast there, but still close enough here. Well, out over the Misty Fjords area, northeast flow on the back side of that there for the northern southeast coast. Easterly winds 75 knots here at 33,000 feet over the eastern interior. Trough here along the west coast. Northwest winds on the west side of that, 75 to 90 knots there, blowing down across the Alaska Peninsula. A ridge out here to the west, and south to southwest winds, 85 to 95 knots up in toward the Russian Far East. And 9,000 feet, about the same pattern here, big high pressure area up over the eastern Arctic coast and north slope. Easterlies 30 knots across the Yukon Flats, turn southeast and south up to 40 knots there, clipping Point Hope and Cape Lisburne. And then some good southerly winds out here over the western Bering Sea with another system just to the west. And northwest, 35 knots across the Alaska Peninsula, Unalaska Island area, and southeast, 40 to 45 knots coming up across Kodiak Island in toward Kamishak Bay, and extending right up the western interior. East 30 knots, as I mentioned, for the Yukon Flats, but pretty light here for the Copper River Basin down across the southeast coast. 9,000 feet, easterlies maybe 25 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, otherwise south 35 knots again over the Chukchi Sea, maybe over the Point Hope Cape Lisburne area. Lighter winds here from the southeast across the Seward Peninsula, about 25 knots there for Norton Sound. Southeast 45 knots around Iliamna Lake area, and pretty light though over the interior and the southeast coast. And for turbulence, maybe some isolated moderate here for areas from about Adak westward to Kiska Island. But the more significant area would be here over the southwest part of the state into the Barren Islands. Could be considerable moderate turbulence there, and then lighter amounts here for the western Seward Peninsula up to the northwest coast. Otherwise pretty smooth elsewhere.